What if I told you that obsession can turn deadly in the blink of an eye? In this video, we'll be diving into the 7 darkest stalker stories that ended in horror, showing you just how terrifying it can be when someone refuses to let go. If you think you know what it's like to be followed, think again, because by the end of this video, you'll discover the chilling lengths these stalkers went to. Stick around, or you might miss the one story that will make you double-check your locks tonight. In February 16, 1988, what started as a routine workday at ESL Inc. in Sunnyvale, California, ended in unimaginable horror. Richard Farley, a man consumed by deep, even mad obsession, walked into the office armed with an arsenal of weapons. 5 hours later, 7 people had died, leaving another 4 injured, and among the wounded was the woman at the center of his obsession, Laura Black. Farley and Black's story began on the very day she got employed at ESL Inc. According to Farley himself, he was infatuated with her from the very first moment he saw her. This infatuation with Laura grew into an obsession, one that Laura tried desperately to reject. He bombarded her with letters and romantic proposals, each more insistent than the last. Despite Laura's clear and firm rejections, Farley refused to accept that she wasn't interested. His unwanted attention turned into harassment. Farley began leaving gifts on Laura's decks, sending them to her home, and even showing up at her house unannounced. Laura did everything she could, reporting him to HR, firmly rejecting his advances, and eventually filing a restraining order. But instead of deterring him, these actions only fueled Farley's rage. Farley's behavior grew more alarming as he started making explicit threats against Laura, even sometimes referring to his large gun collection. He now believed that if he couldn't have her, no one could. The restraining order, which Laura hoped would protect her, only seemed to push him over the edge. Then came that fateful day in February. Armed with multiple firearms, Farley stormed into the office, his intent clear. He opened fire, turning the place of work into a war zone. The massacre that followed was one of the deadliest workplace shootings in history. Laura Black, his primary target, was critically wounded but survived. What makes this case even more terrifying is the cold, calculated nature of Farley's actions. After a 5-hour standoff with police, he was finally apprehended, showing no remorse for the lives he had destroyed. Although most people don't know, Farley had planned the attack, purchasing firearms and ammunition over several months, all while continuing to harass Laura. A single knock at the door. What could be more ordinary? But for Rebecca Schaeffer, an up-and-coming actress with a promising future, that knock marked the beginning of a tragic end. On July 18, 1989, Robert John Bardo, a man who had turned his innocent admiration into a deadly obsession, stood on the other side of a Los Angeles apartment. The outcome was death. Bardo had noticed Schaeffer on the TV show My Sister Sam, where a girl next door charm captivated him, but admiration turned into obsession, and Bardo began writing letters and attempting to meet her on set, attempts that were rightfully blocked. Yet, Bardo's fixation only deepened. The breaking point came when he saw Schaeffer in a film where she appeared in a scene that shattered the innocent image he had constructed of her in his mind. Fueled by rage and a warped sense of betrayal, Bardo decided that if he couldn't have her the way he wanted, no one could. Armed with Schaeffer's home address, Bardo traveled to Los Angeles. When Schaeffer answered the door, she had no idea that the young man standing before her was about to end her life. With a single cold-blooded shot, Bardo murdered Schaeffer. This tragic event didn't just shock Hollywood. It sparked a revolution in stalking laws and privacy protections. In fact, Bardo had previously stopped pop star Debbie Gibson but shifted his focus to Schaeffer when his attempts to get close to Gibson failed. The night December 8, 1980 is one the world will never forget, a night when the music stopped, and a man, Mark David Chapman, stood waiting. He wasn't just another fan eager for an autograph. He was a man driven by a twisted blend of admiration and resentment, ready to do the unthinkable. You see, Chapman had once idolized Lennon, but his feelings soured over time, turning into a deep-seated hatred fueled by his belief that Lennon was a phony. This belief was rooted in his obsession with J.D. Salinger's novel, The Catcher in the Rye, a book he clung to as if it were a manifesto. In Chapman's disturbed mind, Lennon's message of peace and love contradicted his wealth and lifestyle, making him a hypocrite in the eyes of his deranged admirer. That fateful evening, after spending hours outside the Dakota, Chapman finally saw Lennon and asked for his autograph. But as Lennon walked away, Chapman called out to him, then fired 5 shots, 4 of which struck Lennon in the back. What makes this case even more chilling is what happened next. Chapman didn't flee the scene. Instead, he calmly sat down on the curb and began reading The Catcher in the Rye, waiting for the police to arrive. What's more, Chapman had planned to kill other celebrities like Elizabeth Taylor and Johnny Carson, but ultimately decided on Lennon. While the world is still not certain about what motivated Trump's shooter, there's really no doubt about what motivated John Hinckley Jr. back in 1981. He just wanted Jodie Foster's love and affection. John Hinckley Jr. got obsessed with actress Jodie Foster after watching the film Taxi Driver. But then the line between reality and fantasy blurred for Hinckley, as he became convinced that the only way to win Foster's love was through an act of unprecedented violence. Hinckley's obsession led him down a dark path of stalking as he bombarded Foster with letters and even accepted to enroll at Yale University, where she was studying, in hopes of meeting her. But his delusions only grew more intense. Hinckley began to identify with the character of Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver, a disturbed loner who plots to assassinate a presidential candidate. In Hinckley's mind, he believed that mirroring Bickle's actions would somehow earn Foster's admiration. So on March 30th, 1981, in Washington, D.C., Hinckley put his twisted plan into action. Armed with a .22 caliber revolver, he waited outside the Hilton Hotel where President Ronald Reagan was scheduled to speak. As Reagan exited the building, Hinckley opened fire, wounding the president and 3 others, including Press Secretary James Brady, who was left permanently disabled. The nation was thrown in chaos, and Hinckley's name became synonymous with one of the most notorious assassination attempts in American history. To think he wasn't driven by political motives or hatred for Reagan, he just wanted to impress a woman who had no idea he existed. After the shooting, he didn't try to escape. Instead, he calmly waited to be arrested, later explaining that he believed this act would make him a hero in Foster's eyes. But did you know that Hinckley had previously stalked President Jimmy Carter but failed to act? Now, before we go to our 5th stalker case, please it would help us work more on these stories if you would like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you. A bright sunny day in Tucson, Arizona turned into a nightmare on January 8, 2011, when Jared Lee Launer unleashed a torrent of violence that would change countless lives forever. Among the injured again was a politician, Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, and this time around she was the object of obsession. Launer first encountered Giffords in 2007 at a political event where his warped mind began to fixate on her. Over the years, his mental state deteriorated, jumping from one conspiracy theory to another. Soon, Launer began to view Giffords not just as a political figure, but as the embodiment of everything he believed was wrong with the world. On that fateful day in 2011, Launer put his delusional plans into motion. Armed with a Glock 19, he attended one of Giffords' constituent meetings. But instead of dialogue, Launer brought death. He opened fire, shooting indiscriminately into the crowd. In a matter of seconds, 6 people were dead, including a federal judge and a 9-year-old girl. 13 others were injured, with Giffords suffering a severe brain injury after being shot in the head at close range. What's particularly unsettling is that Launer had planned this attack, purchasing the weapon and ammunition months in advance. He was certain that the act was for the greater good. Interestingly, Launer had developed a bizarre ritual of leaving cryptic notes in his belongings, one of which read, "My assassination," followed by Giffords' name. This chilling glimpse into his mind revealed just how deep his obsession had gone. The sight of a uniformed officer brings a sense of security to most, but for Dale Cregan, the uniform symbolized the target. It took the hip-hop song F the Police to a whole new level. In 2012, this British criminal was already on the run, having brutally murdered a father and son. Yet his reign of terror was far from over. Cregan's next act would shock the nation, leaving a scar on the very institutions sworn to protect it. Cregan was a man who thrived on violence. After evading capture for the initial murders, he devised a plan that was as sinister as it was cunning. On September 18, 2012, Cregan made a false report of a burglary in Manchester, deliberately targeting the police officers who would respond. Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes, two officers who had dedicated their lives to serving their community, arrived at the scene unaware of the deadly trap that awaited them. As soon as the officers approached the house, Cregan ambushed them with a handgun, firing mercilessly. But the horror didn't end there. Cregan threw a hand grenade at the fallen officers, ensuring their deaths in a gruesome and calculated manner. The cold-blooded execution of Bone and Hughes was not just an attack on them, but a deliberate assault on the entire police force, designed to send a message of fear and domination. What makes Cregan's case even more chilling is the twisted bravado he displayed. After committing these heinous acts, Cregan casually walked into a police station and surrendered. He had lured the officers to their deaths with the sole purpose of killing them, a premeditated act of pure evil. You see, Cregan had a history of violent behavior, including an eye patch he wore as a macabre symbol of his criminal lifestyle. He had lost his eye in a brawl, but wore the patch like a badge of honor. Imagine receiving a letter so well crafted, so deadly in its intent, that it could take your life in an instant. This was the terrifying reality of Icelandic singer Björk in 1996, as she unknowingly became the target of a deeply disturbed fan, Ricardo Lopez. Lopez's story didn't just start with an innocent admiration for the singer. It escalated into a dark, twisted fantasy that consumed him for months. Crazy enough, Lopez documented his descent into madness in a disturbing video diary that spanned 9 months. As his obsession grew, so did his hatred for the very person he idolized. It's worth noting that his hatred for Björk peaked after he learned that she was dating a black man. So he crafted a letter bomb filled with sulfuric acid, intending to disfigure or kill Björk upon opening it. The level of detail in his plan is haunting, down to his recording of a final video where he calmly explained his actions before taking his own life. Luckily, Lopez's maniacal scheme failed. The package never reached Björk. Instead, it was intercepted by Scotland Yard, thanks to a swift police response after the discovery of Lopez's suicide and the ominous final video. Even worse is the fact that Lopez had originally intended to inject HIV-infected blood into the bomb before opting for sulfuric acid. Till today, his final video remains a solid description of how dark the human mind can go. Are there other stalker cases more evil than the ones you've heard today? What are your thoughts and conspiracies on all this? Please let us know in the comments. Until next time, stay safe.